Story 1. Gen Z is pretty cutthroat. Either they like you or they don't. They won't give you a chance. Millennial women will at least explore a potential before concluding whether you're a fit for them or not. And I think it's not a Gen Z/millennial thing, but more of an age thing. With age comes wisdom. When you're young, you mostly go by looks. Someone not attractive is not good enough for you. First impression is the last impression you're ever gonna get. As you become older and wiser and less superficial, you tend to explore people's personalities for the first time. You know looks alone are not good enough for a relationship, so you give non-good-looking people who have other aspects a chance. Story 2. In my experience, millennial women would rather gauge their interest over a date, and Generation Z women would rather do it over text and then go on a date if they are interested. Story 3. More so workplace observations, but I'd say Generation X/older millennials are more easygoing, less professional and more rowdy, but they'll be more open to talk to people. Younger millennials/Generation Z have checklists you have to fulfill to be given time. More professional, but also much more reserved and dismissive. Story 4. Went out with a Generation Z girl the other week. We were talking about traveling, and I said that I would like to visit London, and asked if she would want to go there. She said she doesn't want to travel to where the colonizers came from. That was just really stupid. I didn't want to argue with her, though. No second date. Story 5. I hung out with a Generation Z girl a bunch last year. I'm an old millennial, 39, and she's 24. She was very educated, interesting, and compelling. Also very sensitive, with unreasonable expectations for everybody around her. Anything that might be a joke or might be an attack was definitely an attack. Her friends were all similar. The biggest takeaway I had from hanging out with them was that they had had a doom window in their pockets since they were 8 to 10 years old, and it had not been kind to them. Porn when you're a 12-year-old girl warps your mind. Half of them were a kind of body that would make me blush, and the other half had basically given up on ever having a normal sexual relationship. They were all college-educated actual adults, but would still document everything they did on Instagram like they were 14, and would have whole conversations about whether Connor liked their story because he wanted to get with them or because he was making fun of them. Communicating with Connor was out of the question. They all also were in high school or early college during COVID-19, and it very clearly affected the way they communicate and the things they like to do. I say all that to say that this group of them, all had clearly suffered at the hands of social media and porn and social isolation during COVID-19. I don't think they're a lost generation like many of the comments in this thread are describing, but they definitely have a lot more growing up to do than I think I did at their age. Story 6. I'll make a broad generalization which does not apply to all, but I find Generation Z women tend to ironically want more traditional men who will provide and earn for them. It was a bizarre realization to come to after hearing another lecture about what a man should provide when the topic of dating comes up. Story 7. Honestly, the differences had more to do with the age and maturity difference between the two groups than they did any generational divide. The women I date have been pretty consistent about things like social media and dating expectations across the generational divide. It's more about the maturity gap of dating a 28-year-old or 33-year-old woman versus a 24-year-old woman. Story 8. As a nerdy guy who likes gaming, Star Wars, conventions, tabletop games, etc., I found that there are tons of Generation Z women to date who seem to enjoy these things and hardly any millennial women. At least in online dating around my area. Story 9. They are not as resilient to the horrors of the waking world. I cannot really date outside of my age bracket. There is a certain feeling that having shared misery brings. Story 10. Generation Z are more likely to have an incredibly unrealistic and overblown opinion of themselves. They are also more likely to not value men as much, likely thanks to social media and dating applications. They also seem to have zero understanding of a relationship being a partnership and are more likely to expect the man to do everything for them because they seem to think having a pretty face is all they need to bring to the table. They also seem to dislike men mentioning the table more than millennial women do. Story 11. Millennial women are what I could consider vaguely normal, especially when older they mellow out. Even though they get melancholy and kind of desperate. Generation Z women are quite insane. Can lead to some fun times, but they have serious problems. Story 12. Generation Z girls love their cocaine. I've been bartending as a side hustle for over 10 years, and the young girls that come in do more cocaine blatantly than any other group I've ever seen. I've worked with chefs who had to go to rehabilitation for cocaine use, but never seen them casually bumping lines off their phones at an upscale cocktail bar to the extent Generation Z girls do. Generation Z girls, however, are much better at laying out boundaries and expectations from minute one than millennial girls. There's no games, and what they say is what they mean. Story 13. Gen Z women are insufferable with all the politics and their unreasonable requests. They treat men like garbage. I tried it once. I cannot do it anymore. Millennial women are much more down to earth. I feel sorry for the younger guys these days. They're forced to submit to that if they want relationships. Story 14. Not single anymore as my girlfriend is a millennial. Before her, I did date someone from Generation Z. She was immature but also young, and actually mature in important ways. She had mental disorders, which I disregarded for a long time as just a rough childhood. She wasn't your typical social media-induced member of Generation Z, thankfully. Story 15. I've also realized many women, mostly from Generation Z and some millennials, look at dating as super transactional. I think many get it from the work and hustle culture, where people always want to do the least and receive the most. Since women now hold all the power in dating, many will do the least and receive the most, rewarding only about 30% of men who have it easy. It's about making people whose lives are hard even harder and making people whose lives are easy even easier. It's the good old patriarchy structure that is even worse when it comes to the dating hierarchy that women control. Story 16. It's hard to compare because of age differences, but what I notice is how openly insecure Generation Z women are and how much they think every man has a hidden agenda. They basically suspect you to be the stranger they don't want to choose over a bear in the woods, and it's very frustrating to tackle that. Millennial girls, on the other hand, are often very traumatized without realizing it. Trying to cater to your wishes, being mistreated by their parents without realizing it. Stuff like that. Story 17. Generation Z are more socially awkward, politically deranged, and seem to have a hard time modulating their emotions. They seem less interested in individuals and less interested in the romanticism of life, which is unusual for young people. Story 18. Millennial women tend to be more bitter due to bad life experiences, such as getting divorced or being cheated on, and seem more okay being by themselves, which makes them harder to date. Generation Z women tend to be more bitter because social media encourages them to be bitter and have unrealistic expectations about relationships due to what they see people share on social media. Story 19. Generation Z women are crazy cat ladies and will straight up fight air. Millennial women are top tier. The women in between the beginning of Generation Z and at the end of Millennial are god tier. Best of both worlds, slightly crazy but classy. Story 20. I'm a 28-year-old male, just on the cusp of being a millennial. I've dated women of different ages. One 3 years older, another 9 years older, and currently one 8 years younger. I'll describe them in chronological order. The woman 3 years older was my longest relationship. 5 years of absolute turmoil. She was the most toxic person I've ever met. Her issues stemmed from being bullied, having an awkward phase, being addicted to social media, and lacking accountability and responsibility. She constantly sought attention from the opposite sex, just like a friend of hers. Their validation from attention is very addictive. This age group grew up with newly invented social media, which was never discussed as a harmful thing. It's challenging to get a millennial of that age to agree that social media is toxic. I'm mainly referring to Instagram and Facebook, not Reddit, as it doesn't focus on personal admiration to the same extent. The woman 9 years older was really sweet. She preferred texting through iMessages, a refreshing change from my previous long-term girlfriend. She was direct and knew what she wanted. I believe this was more due to her age than her generation. She had 3 kids, 2 over 18 and 1 aged 4. While enjoyable to talk to her, she didn't have time for the type of relationship I wanted, so it fizzled out. My current girlfriend, 8 years younger, and I have been together for 7 months. Initially, I had no interest in dating her. We met on a dating app for people with specific interests, where she reached out with some questions. I'm very safety-focused and often offer advice or engage to learn more. I've had similar conversations with women her age on the app, but I turned them down if they tried to take it further. I'm quite adventurous, and this girl and I align almost 99% on interests. There's only one thing we don't agree on, and it's not essential to me. She experienced significant trauma growing up, which matured her. While not quite at my maturity level, she's not immature in any deal-breaking ways. I've never felt so attractive or cared for. I appreciate that she acknowledges the negative impact social media has, particularly on her generation. I encourage her to enjoy her college years, like her current birthday weekend with friends. She often contacts me, and I remind her to enjoy her time with them. She's really sweet and has helped heal my trust issues from my 5-year relationship. I dated a few other women between my long-term girlfriend and my current girlfriend, but didn't feel real affection or trust with them. With my current girlfriend, I'm experiencing emotions I haven't felt since I was 20 or 21. I decided to pursue it because it's healing and beneficial, and it's only getting better. I've helped her with her goals, made her feel safe to open up, and found a great partner to enjoy playing video games with. Initially, we thought it would be a one-time thing and that we'd feel awkward after, but it wasn't like that for either of us. We connected easily and conversations flow naturally. My experiences aren't really tied to generational specifics. I found these women where they were in their lives, and they interested me enough to continue engaging with them. I'm just answering this because I have a good range for what you're asking. I don't pursue women based on age. I pursue them based on shared interests, chemistry, intelligence, and other factors. My first girlfriend was a hairdresser. The woman 9 years my senior is a physical therapist. My current girlfriend is double majoring and starting a pharmaceutical software company, already attracting investors and winning business competitions. I'm very attracted to her ambition and intelligence. Anyway, I'm prepared for criticism for dating a younger woman since I must be manipulating her, I roll. I hope this helps with what you wanted to learn. Cheers. Story 21. Millennials aren't completely apathetic towards everyone. They actually put in effort trying to build a connection. Generation Z individuals I've dated are just blasé about everything, seem to have no interests that aren't cliché, no passion, and think they're this incredible catch, and they're most definitely not. Millennials will actually work to keep things going. The last date was 2, 5, 8. Generation Z individuals always say, I'm just not feeling a connection. If they ever get off their phone or even reply within 36 hours. Story 22. Generation Z women can be very indecisive, and it can be difficult to understand their true desires or motivations because they themselves are often unsure. Younger Generation Z faces this issue along with being influenced by social media, relying heavily on the opinions of their friends and small social circles. They tend to be more liberal and misandrist compared to their male counterparts, who are often conservative and misogynistic. Older Generation Z experiences the same issues, but social media influence hasn't affected them as severely. Many are not as misandrist as the younger Generation Z women. Among millennial women, I have yet to find someone who is clear about what she wants in a relationship or partner. They are either still pursuing the types of men they were interested in when they were younger or are unsure about what they want now. I hope to find a woman one day with whom we are both compatible and who knows what she wants. Story 23. Generation Z are a lot shallower than millennial women, I've found, possibly due to social media and celebrities warping their perspective, so a woman considered a 6 looks-wise develops the mindset of a 9. Therefore, any man below that isn't attractive enough for her. Story 24. As a Generation Z guy who's only ever dated women around my age, I cannot compare. I can only say that I've never been involved with a girl I didn't come to regret in some way. There's been different ways, but always regretted. Story 25. Millennial women are really easy to talk to and get along with. Generation Z women are like skittish deer and really care about their online personality and presence. Story 26. Women are just women. They are human. Sure, there probably are slight differences. Everyone wants to be validated, to experience love and acceptance. We are all the same, no matter what. Story 27. Gen Z women and men seem to have a hard time seeing humans as individuals and only judge humans by the things they were born as and can't help, like their sex, race, sexual orientation, and nationality. It's hard for them to see people as unique individuals. Of course, not all. Story 28. The only trend I notice that I don't see mentioned is that slightly more Generation Z women spend time exercising than millennial women. However, that isn't saying much because every time I go to the gym, it is 5 men per 1 woman, and those women are usually putting in zero effort, barely breaking a sweat. Story 29. Millennial woman won't even slightly think about paying for the date despite them making twice my salary. Generation Z woman insists on paying for the date despite me making a salary while they live on student loans.